It always starts the same way. You catch a glimpse of yourself not in a mirror but in the eyes of others. They reflect back something that isn't quite you, a version that's bigger, stronger, more capable, or perhaps smaller, weaker, less worthy. Either way, it's not the real you. It's a projection. And Carl Jung spent his life warning us about the dangerous power of these projections. Not with the soft words of a motivational speaker, but with the surgical precision of a man who spent decades staring into the psychological abyss of the human soul. What he discovered there should frighten you, not because it's supernatural, but because it's so fundamentally human that none of us can escape its influence. Jung wasn't interested in surface-level psychology. He descended into the darkest chambers of the human psyche. What he discovered there was the shadow, the rejected, disowned parts of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. And when we fail to integrate this shadow, we don't eliminate it. We simply lose the ability to see it. Instead, we project it onto others, creating demons in the world that actually live within us. This isn't mystical speculation. This is the machinery of the human mind laid bare. The shadow isn't something abstract or metaphorical. It's the living, breathing collection of everything you've denied in yourself. Your aggression, your lust, your greed, your weakness, your cruelty. The parts of you that don't fit your self-image get split off, disowned, and then mysteriously appear in the world around you, particularly in the people who trigger you most intensely. Most men spend their entire lives running from this shadow work. It's easier to blame, to point fingers, to see the world as the problem rather than facing the war raging inside. You think your discontent comes from external forces, your job, your relationship, society. But Jung would tell you that these are merely screens upon which you project your own inner conflict. The enemy isn't out there. The battlefield is within. And every time you point a finger at someone else, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. That irritating boss, that frustrating partner, that annoying stranger. They're carrying parts of yourself that you've refused to acknowledge. This doesn't mean they're perfect or that they bear no responsibility. It means that your intense emotional reaction to them is the shadow's fingerprint. It's the psyche's way of showing you where your work lies. Jung called this process projection, and he observed that it's most powerful and dangerous in our intimate relationships. When you're attracted to someone, you're rarely seeing them as they truly are. You're seeing a carrier of your own projections, both positive and negative. The qualities you're drawn to, that magnetic pull you feel, often has little to do with the other person. It's your own disowned potential that you're recognizing, your own unlived life calling to you. This is why the initial stages of attraction feel so intoxicating. You're not just meeting someone new, you're encountering lost parts of yourself. You're feeling whole, perhaps for the first time, not because this person completes you, but because they're temporarily carrying the completeness that already exists within you that you've been unable to access. And women Jung observed that they project too. The animus, the masculine archetype within every woman, seeks expression. When undeveloped, it emerges as unrealistic expectations, inappropriate judgments, and the maddening sensation of never being fully seen or understood. The woman projects her inner masculine onto you, and if you're not psychologically awake, you'll accept the role. You'll perform. You'll become an actor in someone else's inner drama. Jung described this as a form of spiritual possession, where the woman herself becomes unaware that she's no longer acting from her own consciousness, but from the shadowy grip of her inner masculine fantasy. She'll argue without reason, dominate without wisdom, moralize without accountability, not because she's malicious, but because she's possessed by an unconscious force she hasn't yet integrated. And men, you fall for it because nobody taught you to spot it. You confuse being desired with being known. You mistake being chosen with being understood. You believe her words when she says you're different, when in reality, you're just the latest face she's cast to fulfill a role she's been rehearsing since she was a child. This is why relationships so often end in bitter disappointment. The initial attraction, that feeling of having found your perfect match, was largely projection. You weren't falling in love with a person. You were falling in love with parts of yourself you hadn't yet recognized or developed. And when the projection begins to fade, when you start to see the actual human being standing before you rather than the carrier of your fantasy, disillusionment sets in. You feel betrayed, manipulated, led on, when in reality, the illusion was co-created. You were as much an architect of the fantasy as she was. Jung warned that this cycle is inevitable until you do the work of individuation, the lifelong process of psychological integration. This isn't comfortable work. It requires facing your shadow, withdrawing your projections, and taking responsibility for the disowned parts of yourself. It means recognizing that your anger, your lust, your weakness, your strength, your brilliance, your capacity for cruelty, it's all you. Not parts of others that influence you, but elements of your own psyche that you've refused to claim. Individuation isn't glamorous, it's brutal. It requires you to confront the parts of yourself you've buried, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It demands that you stop blaming others for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Because here's what Jung knew that most men will never understand. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Most men never undertake this journey. It's too threatening to the ego. Easier to remain fragmented, projecting the disowned parts of yourself onto others, blaming the world for your own inner conflicts. Easier to perform, to wear masks, to shape-shift into whatever form gains approval. Easier to live unconsciously than to bear the weight of awareness. But Jung warned that this easier path leads to a life half-lived, to relationships based on illusion, to a perpetual sense of emptiness and disconnection. Jung observed that the greatest tragedy of modern men is not that they are rejected, but that they are willing to mold themselves into whatever shape they believe will be accepted. You call it compromise, you call it partnership, you call it love, but Jung had a different name for it: self-betrayal. You stop being men and start being masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you forget who you were before you put the mask on. And women sense this. The very thing you think will make her love you, obedience, predictability, availability, becomes the very reason she loses attraction. Why? Because the feminine instinct, Jung taught, isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself fully known, without boundaries, without a backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. And yet, here's the paradox that keeps most men enslaved. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live in a role than face the terror of standing without applause. But Jung taught that until a man embraces that solitude, he will never be free. The individuated man, by contrast, is whole. Not perfect wholeness includes imperfection, but integrated. He has faced his shadow and incorporated it into his conscious identity. He has withdrawn his projections from others and taken responsibility for his own psychological content. He no longer needs others to carry parts of himself that he refuses to acknowledge. And this integration fundamentally changes his relationships. A man who has faced his own unconscious cannot be seduced by projection. He is no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He is the author of his own reality. He has earned his worth not through another's affection, but by standing alone, fully awake, fully responsible, fully alive. When you no longer project your disowned feminine onto women, you can finally see them as they are, not as goddesses or demons, but as human beings with their own complex psyches. When you no longer need others to carry your shadow, you can engage with them authentically rather than manipulatively. When you're no longer driven by unconscious patterns, you become capable of genuine intimacy, of seeing and being seen, without the distorting lens of projection. And here's where it gets paradoxical. The moment you stop needing women to complete you is precisely when you become most attractive to them. Not because you're playing some manipulative game, but because you've become real. Women sense authenticity just as keenly as they sense desperation. The individuated man doesn't chase. He doesn't pursue. He doesn't need to. He stands in his truth, and the world responds differently. Jung observed that most people will resist this truth with everything they have. They'll rationalize, intellectualize, and deny, rather than face the reality of their own projections. They'll blame others for not fulfilling fantasies, rather than questioning why they created those fantasies in the first place. They'll seek new relationship after new relationship, hoping that the next person will finally be the perfect carrier for their projections, never realizing that the pattern will continue until they do their inner work. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging their unlived fears, unmet needs, and unresolved childhood wounds into the arms of another person they barely understand. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man hypnotized, you keep walking into the trap, thinking this time it will be different. But it never is, because you have not yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I am the one responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to call them manipulative, deceptive, shallow. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you let yourself be chosen by that woman in the first place? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own inner feminine world is destined to be a slave to hers. You are not a victim. You are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to be the actor in her private myth, because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was far more terrifying than playing a part in someone else's fantasy. This is why Jung wasn't popular at cocktail parties. His insights strip away comfortable illusions. They place responsibility squarely on your shoulders. They demand that you stop blaming others for your own psychological condition. They require that you do the difficult, painful work of facing yourself honestly. But he also offered hope. The process of individuation, while challenging, leads to a life of greater meaning, authenticity, and genuine connection. Jung didn't offer cheap solutions. He didn't give you 3 steps to alpha male greatness. He gave you the brutal, lifelong task of self-confrontation, of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions start to crack, until the voice in your head that says you're nothing without her begins to die. And make no mistake, that voice will fight for its life. It will tell you that you need her, that you are incomplete without her, that no man can live without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something more dangerous. It whispers that the man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, without being needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that place, you don't become cold or distant. You become real. You become rooted, grounded, fully alive in your own skin. The individuated man stands in his truth. He doesn't need approval or validation. He doesn't need others to complete him or carry his projections. He has claimed all aspects of himself, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the heroic and the vulnerable. And from this place of integration, he can finally experience love not as need or projection, but as a genuine meeting of sovereign beings, each whole unto themselves. And that is when, paradoxically, women will feel most drawn to you, not because you need them, but because you don't. And you'll smile not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand. You understand that she is on her own journey too, that she must face her own animus, that she must wake from her own illusions. And you can't do that work for her. You can't save her from herself. You can only walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror reflecting the truth back to everyone who dares to look. Most will turn away, but a few, a rare few, will thank you for it. Jung's warning to modern men is as relevant today as it was a century ago. Stop projecting. Stop blaming. Stop expecting others to carry your psychological content. Do the difficult inner work of integration. Face your shadow with courage and honesty. Withdraw your projections and take responsibility for your own wholeness. The reward for this work isn't external approval or validation. It's the profound freedom that comes from authenticity, the quiet strength that emerges from integration, and the genuine connections that become possible when you no longer need others to complete you. You'll notice how uncomfortable people become around you. They'll sense it even if they can't name it. The weight of your presence will unsettle them because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they use to feel safe. The individuated man is not welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as distant or arrogant. But the truth is far more threatening. You have simply become untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable because you see through the game. The journey of individuation isn't easy. It demands facing truths that most people spend their lives avoiding. It requires the courage to see yourself clearly, without the comforting distortions of ego. It necessitates letting go of familiar patterns, even when those patterns have structured your entire understanding of yourself and the world. But Jung insisted that this journey, difficult as it is the only path to becoming fully human, to living a life of meaning, authenticity, and wholeness. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because as you walk that path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You begin to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you see, they mock you. They call you cold, arrogant, too serious. But you're not the problem, you're the mirror. And people hate mirrors that show them things they don't want to face. And so the choice is yours. You can continue projecting, blaming, and living unconsciously, or you can embark on the hero's journey of psychological integration. You can keep expecting others to carry parts of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge, or you can do the difficult work of becoming whole. You can remain fragmented, driven by unconscious patterns, or you can become the author of your own authentic life. Jung showed us the path. The question is whether you have the courage to walk it. In that raw moment of clarity, you have two choices. You can blame her. You can become bitter. You can join the angry chorus of men who point their fingers at women, mocking them, resenting them, swearing them off like cowards who never dared to face their own emptiness. Or you can do what Jung would have demanded of you. You can turn inward. You can start the lonely, terrifying, liberating work of individuation, of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. Because the truth is, the woman you're searching for out there is a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance, every connection a transaction, every love a lie. But when you do face it, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't run after them. You don't manipulate them. You don't perform for them. You stand still, fully rooted in who you are. And from that place, something miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth. You'll know it when it happens because she won't demand that you perform. She won't try to change your script. She won't fall in love with the fantasy of you. She'll stand before you, raw and real, not as a goddess looking for worship, but as a human being willing to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. If you've made it this far, if something in these words has resonated with a truth you've always sensed but perhaps never articulated, then you're already on the path. The journey of individuation begins with awareness, with the recognition that your projections are exactly that, projections. Not truth, not reality, but psychological content that belongs to you. Take ownership of it. Integrate it. Become whole. The world doesn't need more fragmented men projecting their shadows. It needs integrated human beings who have done the inner work and can engage with life from a place of wholeness. Carl Jung didn't leave you a map to follow. He left you a warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you volunteer to play, to stop seeking wholeness in someone else's eyes, to stop waiting to be chosen, because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. Like, share, subscribe if this message resonated with you. Help spread the wisdom of psychological integration in a world desperately in need of it. And remember Jung's most important insight: the outer journey is a reflection of the inner one. Change yourself and you change how you experience everything else. Your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man who's still living in the illusion, waiting to be set free. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up the world one man at a time.